For me, as I got into my coaching business, I started to realize that business is really simple. Like, it's so simple. People are super complex, though. You know, our parents give us things out of love to serve us, and it did serve me till it didn't. And I think we need to look at the things that maybe aren't serving us right now and not judge them, because they certainly served us to a point.
Hi everybody, welcome to Coffee with Robert. I've got a great guest this week, Nafissa Shireen. I'm delighted to have her on board this week. She has got a terrific backstory and she also does some incredible work. There's an awful lot of value to be had by watching the show this week or tuning into the podcast or the blog post too. To give you a little bit of backstory, Nafissa is going to give you much more than this, but she is the host of Living Forward TV. I'm just looking at my notes a second because there's quite a few things she's into here. She's also the founder of Living Forward Business and Lifestyles Inc. And she is a specialist in personal and business development mastery. So we've got an awful lot to connect on there, an awful lot of synergy. I'm incredibly excited to get stuck into today's Coffee with Robert. So with all of that out of the way, I'd like to hand over to Nafissa and say, welcome Nafissa. Tell us all about you. How did you come to where you are right now?
Thank you so much, Robert. Well, I've had a long journey. I mean, I've been at this thing called life for quite a few years. But my career started off just like, most people's do. I was not born an entrepreneur. I came from a very, I would say, lower middle class background. I lived in Montreal, the eastern side of Canada, growing up. And so I grew up with the story that, success was something other people had, right? This wasn't us. And, I saw my dad work really, really hard for years. He had built some businesses, but they were businesses that were owned by other people. So even though he built them, they were taken away because companies move on and people make decisions. So, I mean, I don't necessarily view that someone took it from him. They were just making the right decisions for themselves or their business at the time, but he took that very personally. So I had a lot of that kind of baggage growing up in terms of like feeling that other people controlled my destiny. But there was a part of me that never, ever believed that. I mean, I came from a lower class town. Like the people I grew up with most of them are still there. Some of them still live in their mom's basements. I am not kidding. So, I like to think that my life is a story of the fact that where you started does not have anything to do with where you end up. So through those years, I mean, I grew up, I did work for my dad. And one thing he did give me was an incredible work ethic. To just go out and work. But the problem with that was that I really tapped into that the work was the value, not the outcome. But it served me well throughout my corporate career until I got to a certain level where I could not bust through it anymore. So I had started working in 1987, and so now we're getting to around 2005, 2006. So 22 years of career and education, and I kind of tapped out, and I couldn't figure out, like, why was I not getting any further? I was really smart. I had a certification as a professional accountant. I gave that up when I became an entrepreneur, but I had that certification. I was very smart. I knew what I was doing. And as far as I was concerned, I had all the answers, because I worked really hard. But it turns out who I was being was a problem, right? Because I didn't know how to show up in a way that communicated executive presence. I didn't know how to have the emotional intelligence or the spiritual intelligence to really just become that next level, because it wasn't about how smart I was, right? It was about how I was showing up. Now, of course, for those who are listening, how you have to show up as a corporate person is the complete opposite of how you have to show up as an entrepreneur. They have very different success factors. But the point that's the same in all of that is it's not about how smart you are, it's about how you show up. So, I mean, there was a bit of an unlearning when I became an entrepreneur to learn a new way of being, but I had a great career. And then when I hired a coach in my corporate days and I learned how to shift who I was being, I shifted my income. What was it? It's around 2008 or from 2008 to 2010, my income went from 70,000 to 700,000. So I became a big fan of how you're being.
So coaching works.
Yes. And also, but the client has to work too, right? Sure. My coach didn't go out and do the work for me. She couldn't do the personal development for me, but what she could show me was who I was being, or asking questions that I didn't want to hear.
Mm.
And so I had a really good career, but during that time, as I morphed from like practical and the doer and the middle management to executive management, my passion came from coaching other people to succeed, because all of a sudden I saw like I created something pretty cool for myself. I mean, I was a woman in a man's world, like mining. This was in mining that I had gone up to that level.
Mhm.
And I came from a lower middle class family. I had ethnic minority, like I had everything quote going against me. And that's when I realized that it's not really all those outside factors. Like, yes, they exist, but they're only a problem if we decide they're a problem. um, yes, there's things you may need to work around, but if you just decide to work around it, you're going to figure it out, right?
Excellent.
So that was the decisions I had to make. And then I loved it until I didn't. And I did not like who I had to be to stay at that level. So I just left the corporate world one day, and then I kind of morphed into coaching. And that was a whole other journey, because all of a sudden everything I learned on how to be and how to show up and be a consensus builder and making sure that I was serving everybody else's needs, and like it doesn't work as an entrepreneur. You have to just make decisions really fast, and you can't be planning 2 years out, and you can't be meticulous. You have to go with the flow, and you have to make decisions without anybody's approval or input. So that
Mm.
was a whole other thing that I had to learn. And so through it, I did not succeed right away as an entrepreneur. I really had a hard time. In my work as as a coach, whether it's with my own clients or with colleagues who've been in coaching programs with me, I have found that the ones that tend to have the hardest struggle are those who have been very successful in corporate
Mhm.
to get going, because they are stuck in that left brain thinking. They're stuck there. They don't, and they know a lot about business. And even if they've achieved a lot, like I did,
Mhm.
I was an unconscious competent. I didn't know, like I didn't actually know what I was doing till I looked back. So I find that fascinating. And so for me, as I got into my coaching business, I started to realize that business is really simple. Like it's so simple. People are super complex though. So what makes people do things? What makes people stop themselves? What makes people self-sabotage? What makes people settle for less? Like a great example is if people leave a job, the first thing they say is, well, I just want to replace my income. But it's like, but you can do anything now, right?
Yeah.
So that story of why people shrink back and settle fascinated me. And so that's what got me into more of a softer side of my coaching business.
Mm.
The spiritual side, the emotional side, the subconscious mind, universal law, to really understand people. Um, my clients are always going to have to look at their numbers.
Mm.
They can't help that. But
Awesome.
that's a result, that's an effect, that's not a cause. So that's kind of where I got to where I am, because I think money's a doorway to our deepest desires, our deepest pain points, our deepest passions, our purpose.
Yeah.
So if we get the tip in there to think, okay, if it's the money's blocked, your purpose is blocked. So let's get in. So there you go.
You know what? There's a few interesting points I want to pick up, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And it's funny that you kind of say about the money thing there, because it's very much that way with this show. It's
Mhm,
like I like to chat with all sorts of people,
mhm,
but I'm aware that when I can get people on that are successful, that the idea that they're successful and they've maybe made a lot of money is the key to the door. That's what gets people to show up and actually interact with the show and check it out.
mhm.
But that's not what we're really interested in. It's the other stuff.
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying earlier, again, it sounds like so many stories I hear as well that we all go through. When we're born into this world, we obviously, the stimulus is our parents and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm,
And as we grow up, we kind of end up, if we're not very careful, getting all of our ideas about life, everything, our whole viewpoint, our window to the world is actually structured from the beliefs of our parents and their limiting beliefs and everything else. So we end up, if we're not careful and if we're not consciously aware of it, living our own lives are in our skin, but somebody else's life, if you know what I mean, in our
yep.
skin. And we wonder why we go through life, so many people feeling frustrated, not knowing why there feels like there's a hole somewhere they can't fill. And it's this thing that when you kind of get out of that loop, and you suddenly get to for a lot of people, it's they get to a certain age in life where they kind of start to get a handle on the fact that there are other things and other ways of looking at things, and that doing it that way might not just be the only way to do it. They
Yeah.
start to question the values they've got and ask questions like, are they really my values? Are they really?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's weird that you've kind of gone through all of that and ended up kind of morphing into the coaching and moving into the coaching and doing what you're doing. And to sum it all up, I kind of would say that's more about now who you really are rather than who
Yes.
you're trying to be. Does that
Exactly.
sound?
It does. And when you talk about, living that life of what other people expect, if I go back to the corporate place where I was really hitting my head hard and working so hard, that came from the work ethic that my dad gave me. Now, our parents give us things out of love
Mm,
to serve us, and it did serve me till it didn't.
sure.
And I think we need to look at the things that maybe aren't serving us right now and not judge them, because they certainly served us to a point. And also go, just because it's the way you've always done it doesn't mean it's going to keep working, right? What's that book, like What Got You Here Won't Get You There? Like
I think,
I've lived that way in my life. And I think if we can really step into our purpose, like for me, coaching's very personal to me. I mean, and I know the industry like has sometimes a bad rap because there is a lot of fluff online, or people like I saw uh, an ad, and I don't know what it was for, and it was like, become a life coach in 30 days. I was like, no, you can't.
yeah,
You might learn a skill, but you have to go through a lot of that real personal development, especially as you become a coach, because you've really got to go inwards. And I never became a coach to make money in the beginning. It's certainly something that you can, and I do have an incredible income on it, but I think sometimes it gets confused, like, well, people just, they don't know what to do, so they're going to become a coach, right? But for me, the coaching was because I so believe in it, because of the results having the right coach had in my own life.
yeah,
And it was about the legacy of, yes, the legacy of paying it forward. And even as a coach, I've had to go through my own development, because when I first started, like I remember I didn't know anything. So I went and took a course, and it goes, well, that was a weekend and $1,000 I'll never get back. But like,
yeah,
I did not feel qualified to do anything. This has been an 8-year journey.
yeah,
And obviously I get better and my clients get better results the longer I'm in this, right? But you start off taking a course or getting your ICF certification and all the things that go with it, and then it doesn't feel aligned. And that narrative is, you don't, it's all focus forward and solution oriented, which I completely agree with, and
yeah,
you don't want to listen to the story. But that's a different kind of coaching than what I think for me would work, because I believe the story gives context so we can break that to look forward. So we
mm,
have to know what the story is, because not to keep the person stuck in a spiral. And even as the coach or facilitator, I don't necessarily need to know it per se, but because I do a lot of work with the subconscious mind, we need to pull out what's blocking them, because you can have, I felt like originally when I started coaching, I was just giving people to-do lists,
yeah,
right? So what are your action steps, whatever, and then they wouldn't do them.
mm,
And so, but why not, right? And was my coaching ineffective? Yes, it was, because I was following someone else's model. So it's been even about throughout my journey as a coach to really step out there and get comfortable going onto the woo side of things, because I mean, 25 years in corporate, that would not be there, and I squished it down.
yeah,
um, and actually getting into the deeper work with people, the emotional, the cellular work, the subconscious work, and I work with horses too, which
mm,
is a very spiritual experience, to get people out of that left brain thinking
yeah,
into stillness, presence, reflection,
mm,
truth about themselves. Because yes, if you are doing a lunch
mm,
and nothing's working, you need to look at your ads, you need to look at your copy, you need to look if your timers are the right color. I get
mm,
that.
mm,
We're about to launch something right now. My coach is looking at all that stuff. But if you're consistently not creating results in your life, none of that's going to help you. you have to go beneath that. And so for me, that's what's fascinating, and that's the journey I took, because yeah, like it, it's this story matters,
Oh,
and who you are matters, and getting to those passions and beliefs, because so many people live a life of mediocrity in the name of safety.
yeah. It's absolutely crazy. And I've got to be honest with you, we're singing from the same hymn sheet, because I've always felt the same way. I'm
Mhm.
absolutely fascinated about human performance, peak
Yep.
performance, and what makes the difference between one person and another. Because you'll get two people will be exposed to the same information, and one person will go away and be incredibly successful, and the other person will either fail or will do nothing. So
Yep.
what's the difference? Is it in the information? Well, clearly not. It's in the way they're wired. It's in the way they're communicating things to themselves, and the
Mhm.
meanings they're attaching to everything. And so I'm kind of, I'm the same as you. It just, I love to work with people on that, and to show them that they can actually change their default setting. They can reprogram. It's all about, tell me if you agree with this, because this is what I've always found, and this is what I really, really believe, is that the big problem with a lot of people is the only reason they don't break the bad habits they've got, and they don't develop new belief systems that support them in what they want, is because they haven't got the discipline to put in the conscious effort until the conscious effort becomes some subconscious reprogramming, where it's just who they are now, not who they're trying to be.
Yep.
And that sometimes can take 30 to 90 days,
Mhm.
depending on how long, how deep-seated the issue is that we're dealing with. And most people will try something like that for a day and wonder why they haven't changed.
I think it's twofold, because I would still look at the lack of discipline as, why is there a lack of discipline?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Like, if you want it really bad, right? Like, just taking into example, like, I mean, um, I love to use weight loss as an analogy. Like, we know what we need to do, but there's a lack of discipline there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and like I joke, well, I've gained a little bit of weight in the last few years, but nobody's ever forced the ice cream down my mouth, right? So
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, so I chose to gain the weight, right?
yeah.
Let's be real. So
Mm,
so I like to go deeper, to go, well, what's causing that lack of discipline, or that um everybody has like three. I mean, Tony Robbins talks about seven, but there's three that I really work with in terms of core fears and core beliefs. But like the need for love,
mm,
self-worth, and self-esteem. So sorry, security. Self-worth and self-esteem are the same thing. So um if we go deeper and we find the root, it's either they don't believe that their efforts will work, they're afraid of losing love, they're afraid of, they just don't know any better. And I read a quote the other day that was so profound. I can't remember if it was on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. I saw somebody put something up, and it was one of those things that stopped me in my tracks. And I can't remember even if it was somebody I knew that did it, because most of my clients have incredible results, but because they want them. Sometimes some don't, and I show up the same, right? So but, you know, and there's this one client, and I had to let her go, because after a couple of years, she still was not getting results at all. And I thought, this isn't, you know what? I'm not in this business to take your money. You need to want the change. You need to want the results.
sure.
So I'm not here to have you be a breakthrough junkie. You got to break forward and do something. So that, it was a hard decision, but I knew that for my ethics, that was the right thing to do, because this isn't about taking someone's money. And so this quote struck me, because I was right in the middle of making that decision, and I felt so much compassion when I read it. And I'm probably going to bungle it up, but it said something to the effect of, when somebody is living with a broken spirit, or a broken identity, or a lack of self-belief, they don't come out of that, because that has been their truth for so long that they don't know what to replace it with.
Mm,
And it was like, wow, right? So I mean, and that's an extreme
yeah.
situation, but I thought of this particular client, and I thought, that is true.
Mm,
They don't know what to it is so scary to go there. So I think it's a combination. So yeah, there is a lack of discipline, but
yeah, definitely. The people,
why is there a lack of
exactly.
discipline? Because if because I mean, think about it, right? Like, if you just do this every day for 30 days, you could triple your income. Why don't people do it?
Yeah, yeah. It's true what you say. People actually become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's
Well, they
that,
don't know
it
any
is that
better.
comfort. It's what they get used to, isn't it? It's almost like there's safety there,
And
security
it's
there.
normal.
Yeah.
It's normal. I had a friend, like, and she's somebody who has always believed that life is what's been given to you. And I mean, I've had to put distance as I've matured as an entrepreneur because I don't want to be around that belief system.
Mm.
And I remember she came to visit one time because she lives out of town, and then she went and visited some other friends. And I said, well, how was your evening tonight, right? And I mean, I'm not going to coach friends. I don't have that permission, right? And she said, well, it was really nice meeting everybody. It was hard. So and so lost his job, and this person's fighting cancer, and this one's depressed, and but it's just life, and life's hard, and these are real people.
Mm.
And I just sat there, and I like, and I
Mm.
just said, why do you want to sit in that environment
Yeah.
of negativity? And she got quite upset with me to say, like, but this is life. Like, you don't understand. People don't all have it as easy as you do. I'm like, like, oh my God, the one thing I don't have it is easy.
Yeah.
Like, I have risked everything. I have had, humiliation. I have had wins. I've had physical injuries. It's not easy,
Yeah.
right? But pick your hard. Like, you can sit in that, or you can do the other type of hard things that are emotionally uncomfortable and have good results that are easy, right? So it's pick your hard and pick your easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
like, do you want the easy process and the horrible result, or do you want the challenging process and the easy result?
Yeah.
That's
And let's be honest, it's your life we're talking about. Is it
Yeah.
worth it? I think so. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, is your life and your passion and purpose
Yeah.
worth being safe or miserable about? And so that's why that whole cliche too of, like, you're the 5 people you surround yourself with. It's so. I mean, for me, I've had to shed a lot of the associations because I
Mm.
don't want to be in that mindset, and I have to block my news feed because I don't like. There's I don't know that. I mean, there's some pretty crazy stuff going on in the world right now. But
Mm.
how much more crazy is it than maybe it was 30 years ago, and it just wasn't necessarily in our face every single move, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But we just didn't know what was actually going on.
Mm.
We have to wait the next day till the newspaper came out, and then like people aren't commenting on a newspaper article or getting riled up. So I think we need to really protect our bubbles, our energy bubbles, what we put into our
Totally.
mind.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
you strike me as you're the same as me. You're a very, very spiritual person. So you'll have had that experience where you go into a room and somebody in that room will immediately start sapping your positive energy.
Hmm.
You can feel it off them. You can feel it off them. And at the same time, there are other people that as soon as you get near to them, you feel this just right energy coming off them, this
Yeah.
vibrancy that's
Yeah.
really positive and uplifting. And
Yes.
it's incredible how that will affect people.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you surround yourself with those negative people all day long, it's like the bad apple in the basket. Sooner or
Absolutely.
later, it spoils everything. So I agree with you totally. Listen, I'm really keen to get back to your story a little bit as well, though, because
Okay. Sure.
I'll tell you why I want to dig into this a little bit more, because we're both coaches, okay?
Yes.
And I've got an awful lot of coaches and consultants that
Hmm.
I've dealt with over the years that kind of check me out and
Hmm.
whatever. And unfortunately, for the major part, most of them are struggling as well. And you're clearly not. And I would love you to talk about maybe that kind of changeover from coming out of corporate life into coaching, the
Hmm.
challenges you would have gone
Sure.
through, how you overcame
Absolutely.
them. If you
Absolutely.
that'd be okay
Absolutely.
with you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to set the record straight. I love telling people my first year I hit 6 figures in reverse. So it wasn't very good. Well, I mean, I was used to spending big budgets in corporate, so I wasn't thinking. Um, but the hardest thing for me at first was asking for the sale. Um, Corporate creates an incredible disconnect between who you're serving and who's paying you, because your client, whether it's another department or a company client or an internal source,
Mhm.
is just somebody receiving your service and somebody else is paying you. So there, you just don't make that connection consciously or subconsciously, and it really messes you up.
Mm.
And even though I could really negotiate well in corporate, even for my own salary, I still, like, if I was negotiating with you, you weren't paying me. You were the gatekeeper, right? So when I came out into my own business, asking for money was just like, what,
Mm.
right? selling, I just want to help people. It doesn't work that way. You can't help people if you don't help yourself.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me, was to learn to sell. A huge thing, to be confident asking for the money. I did fall for, and it wasn't as intense back then. I mean, it's amazing how fast the world changes. And I see this, like I've seen at least 3 or 4 posts in one particular Facebook group about this topic recently. And I know somebody who's actually just going through this. And if you're a coach listening to this right now, like, oh my God, get out there and coach. Quit trying to launch your online course, because that's not coaching.
Mm.
And the amount of people that are buying this story that all you have to do is put an online course up there and you'll make all kinds of passive income. There's no such thing as passive income. Maybe you don't have to fulfill, but you got to work really hard to get that in. And it's very, 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 very expensive to market online.
Mm.
Building an online business is just as capital intensive as building a brick and mortar business. And I don't think people realize that.
Mm.
So there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I have digital products and I have done things, but in the beginning I focused too much to be staying online or tweaking my message or getting my website straight and not making money. As coaches, we provide transformation to people, and when we can get clear on that, and we got to do our own work to really understand what we're actually selling. We're selling transformation.
Mm-hmm.
People don't transform in an online course, right? They need the facilitation. Yes, we need something to give people something to start with, or to supplement our income, or to have ads pay for themselves. Like, there's a business side to that. But when cash isn't coming in the door, you don't have a marketing problem, you have a sales problem. Just go out and meet people and talk to people and pick up the phone and make offers. And I think for me, that was the biggest lesson I had to learn, because I'm was talking to a colleague of mine the other day with one of her clients who is a new coach, and she's just says, well, I just want to put it out to the universe. Like, and I'm spiritual, okay?
Sure.
I just want to put it out to the universe. I don't want to have to go out and sell it, and I don't want to have plans. I don't believe in plans, because then we're not opening ourselves up to what spirit may show us. Like,
Mm.
did that work in your career? Did that work anywhere else? Like, you need to meet spirit, you need to meet God, you need to meet the universe with where
Yeah.
you want to go. Spirit is deductive in nature, so it's going to give you what you put out. So when you put out your intentions and sit back and wait, guess what? It's going to sit back and wait. So you need to take aligned action
Mm.
in harmony with your goals. And yes, when I got at a visceral level the law of polarity, that if you have the desire, it exists, that propelled me forward. But I had to also apply the law of cause and effect, meaning I had to get off my booty and take action. So and that action is not always comfortable, because we have to risk rejection.
Yeah.
And not just rejection in the sales process. We have to risk rejection of what we're doing, or that we're stepping out there into a new field, or we're taking on a new identity. But hiding behind our computer is something I see a lot of coaches doing. So my story is, I dabbled the first year, and then I got speaking, and then on stages, I did the rubber chicken circuit, and then I got to bigger stages. Why I'm successful right now is because I focus on the activities that make the cash register ring. I never went big, I went boutique, but then I can charge a lot because my clients get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are starting to kick up our online presence when I have the money to be able to do that. But I'm telling you, like, so just to give you an example, like right now I'm hosting a retreat at my ranch in July, and it's marketing wise, like it's 6 weeks, right? So that's, it's probably a local market that's going to come to it. And typically, what I would do is do like an online teleseminar on a topic, invite people, and to get phone numbers, and then you have this process. But I'm looking at the calendar right now, and I was like, skip that, I have phone numbers. I'm just going to phone people because I actually want to put people into this retreat.
Yeah.
So that's a choice, whereas a lot of people will just start doing their online campaigns and marketing. And I saw a post the other day where somebody said, I'm just starting my business and I need to get money in the door fast. What should I do? Invest in SEO, build my list. It's like, those take time. Go have a conversation, like go meet people. And all the people that commented on that post were same things, get your website done, get your copy figured out, get this done, and it's like that's not going to sell.
Yeah.
yes, you kind of need an online presence, like especially now, like if you talk to somebody and they look you up, but you can have a quick about me page, like with about.me, and just have something so they can find you.
Yeah.
So to the coaches that are listening to this, just hear me. Like I have a multi six-figure business and I've done it through phoning people. Yes, I have a YouTube channel now and I love it. But it hasn't grown as fast as other people's has. If I had put everything into that, I'd be broke. But I do have it because it's regular. It keeps people going. And I follow the formula. So here's something. I follow the YouTube formula to get found for 3 out of 4 videos, but 1 out of 4 videos is for my existing market. And then I'll call people, hey, did you see my video?
Yeah.
Right? And those will turn them over. So at the end of the day, it's face-to-face connection. Coaching is human connection. So if we're afraid to do that, to get the clients, like how can we show up as a coach?
Well, it's not coaching.
No,
I know.
right?
I agree with you. I
So
absolutely love it because I say exactly the same thing. You know, you've got all these guys online saying, "Yeah, do this, do that." You know, put the website up, make a course, and all this sort of stuff. Look, you're quite right in saying everything in its own time. You know,
yeah,
and you've done things when you've been financially stable enough and secure enough to actually implement it without it actually putting you at risk. But most of the guys that are giving this advice out there, they're actually trying to sell something off the back of it. I agree with you. It's a people business. People forget that just because we're online a lot of the time
yeah,
these days, there are people behind computers with feelings, wants,
yes.
needs, desires, passions. We need to connect. All you've
And
got
and
to do
what
is
I love is
book
we
the
can
call.
still meet people online, right? Because online networking is very different than online marketing. We can still network online, and
Of course.
the goal is to get into a conversation. And what you just said about people trying to sell something off the back end of a story, I'm not going to name any names, but go and listen to how they built their business, not what they're doing now. How did they get here? All
Mm,
those things work for them now because they have big bank accounts, they have an established market, they have established affiliates, they have an established brand and reputation,
sure.
and they have the money to go with cold leads to risk it, because it is a risk because you may not get it back. But listen to their beginner day stories on what they did. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of my story and how that got to me where I am is I had to just stop listening to that, and I ended up working with a few coaches. And I had one who was like, "Well, how come you haven't phoned your list?" I'm like, "I can do that." Right? I can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He's like, "Why not?" And Robert, there was a time, it was about 4 years ago now. I had an okay business. I was hovering just below 6 figures, and then the renewals weren't coming in and it was kind of slowing down, and I wasn't necessarily showing up fully for my clients. And it was around November. I had one client renew, so I was looking at $500 or $600 a month. I was way undercharging too. Like this woman hit over 1 million and I was way
Wow.
undercharging her.
Wow.
So that was a lesson too.
Yeah.
Um,
You're definitely going to heaven for charging that.
yeah, 1.7 million is where she's at. Um, I don't charge that anymore, people. But the key is I was sitting there and I was like, I'm not going to have a business next year because I've
Mm.
been doing all this online stuff, right? Like I'm not going to have a business next year if I do this. And this person is like, because of the work we did at the subconscious level, at the cellular level, at the emotional level, I'm telling you, she on our first VIP day, she actually ran away and didn't come back. I was like,
Wow.
oh, I guess we touched a nerve, right?
Yeah.
Um, and she had a lot of business savvy to her, so it wasn't the business stuff, right? It was this emotional piece and the spiritual piece that we had to dive into. And I'm thinking, and she's breaking 7 figures.
Mm.
I need to charge what my services, not what I'm worth, because you can't put a worth on me, but the value I'm bringing to my clients.
Yeah.
So I quintupled my prices like overnight. And of course I didn't believe it, right? But I knew I had to do that because all my money was paying team and support. Like I had to do that for the value they were getting, and I had to do that to support my business, and so that I could have some money too, because it
Mm.
was time for me to not be like I was paying everybody else to coach people. Like it was a money losing proposition. I needed to be paid. So
Mhm.
I did a massive price increase. And then I'm like, okay, well, I made that decision in my head. Now what am I going to do, right? I got on the phone And between Christmas and New Year's, and this is the cool thing, because my mentor now says it's easier to make more money than it is to make less.
Mm.
So charging what I should have been charging, it was really easy to hit 6 figures with just a few people
Mm.
in between Christmas and New Year's. And I still wasn't charging then what I charge now. It was quite a bit less than I charge right now, right? Like it was, but I still hit that between Christmas and New Year's, a time nobody buys, because I got on the phone, I talked to people. Yes, I heard a lot more no's than yeses, but did I care at the end of that week? No.
There's the
And
difference that makes the difference.
yeah, that's the difference that makes the difference. And I had to get over caring what people thought, because I realized that I provided incredible service for a
Mm.
fee. I don't change lives, I facilitate the changing of lives. So why would I be ashamed to call people and see if I can help them with that? They don't want it, that's their choice. So
Exactly.
that kind of changed my life, right?
Mm.
And that's what allowed me to, I mean, I'd always been a risk taker to that point, but here's the thing. I never took emotional risks. I took financial risks, I took business risks, I took maybe somewhat of a social risk, or like change risk. Like I've never been afraid of change, but the emotional risks of being rejected or laughed at or thought that I'm stupid, I never did that.
Mm.
And until I was willing to go there, that's when things changed. So that was the big difference.
Brilliant. It's kind of almost a case of burning the bridges, isn't it, as well? When you're fully
Yes.
committed to something and you've emotionally, mentally, spiritually got no way back in a way. It's
Yep.
kind of, I'm in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Then there's only one thing. You're either going to sink or swim, and you're going to swim every time,
And
because the other
swimming
one's not an option.
is a choice though, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is where like we were talking in the pre-chat
Mm.
about the woo meeting the what.
Mm.
And there is a lot of tendency in the coaching space or transformation space to rely on magical thinking as a way to hide and numb out, and call it spirituality when it's not. It's just a numbing out to not want to do the work, to not want to be responsible for bringing the income in. But also the flip side of that is practical thinking
Mm.
is just as damaging, because then you don't take the chances, you don't put yourself out there, you stay safe. So
Mm.
we want to get to the middle of that and get to lawful thinking,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and what is the law? Like the laws are always working. So if we can study the laws, be versed in the laws,
Mm.
study ourselves, and we have to know that the stories we're carrying, they're also cellular. Like they are in our genes and inherited
Mhm.
through the lineage that our family gives.
Yeah.
And so for some people, it's going to be a lot harder to come through that, because there could be a lot of stuff stuck in there
Mm.
that we have to get rid of, that we have to face. Some of it we have to face consciously, some of it we have to face subconsciously. And I love quotes. And the other one that I love is the degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth they can accept about themselves without running
Mm.
away. That's why I love the horses, because they show you your truth like that, and they have no agenda.
Mm.
I mean, even as a coach, I'm going to have an agenda, right? I'm there to help you get your result.
Sure. Exactly.
We cannot lose our bias. A horse doesn't. So a person can have a really, I mean, and this can be really confronting too. My pony, especially, he's very energy sensitive. Very energy sensitive. He was confronting for me when I got him, because I'm like, I can't get near the little guy, right? He's leaving like I'm this big monster. So I had to learn how's my energy being projected here. And I mean, and we need to be able to go there and face that about ourselves, to be able to take those emotional risks, and then when we're taking them, understand how we're showing up.
Yeah.
Because like I said, that the magical thinking and the practical thinking, like those are two extremes that they both keep you stuck, but in different ways.
Yeah. You know, the kind of, this is one I picked up years ago, and I'm the same as you. I don't remember where I got this one from, but I've adopted it. In terms of the way that we are, that as people, as human beings, we should really learn to trust our gut, our intuition more, because our
Mhm.
gut has not evolved to a place where it confuses everything with logic. At the
Yeah.
same time, At the same time, the law of attraction, it's no accident that more than half of that word is made up of the word action.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's the law of sowing and reaping. And in
Yeah.
nature, the wonderful thing about the laws of the universe and nature is that you plant a seed, a tomato seed, and you don't get one tomato back. You
No.
get a whole bush of tomatoes back. And that's the
Yes.
way it works. But you've got to do the sowing before you
You
can do
have
any of the reaping.
you have to do the uncomfortable
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And I don't, and the funny thing is I don't mean to say that in a way that like it's a drudgery, because it doesn't have to be hard. It's what makes it hard is the fear of what other people think.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest growth opportunity. Like I mean, I don't have that mastered. Right? But it's a lot better than it was. Sometimes things will still come up. Like I mean, just recently I on one of my retreats where I had a client here with um, at the ranch, and I put some pictures up, and it's a beautiful picture of her sitting on the ground in the paddock and my pony coming to her and basically surrendering to her.
Mm.
And somebody that I respected in the equine world, and so like traditional equestrians are very different than natural horsemen and equine guided learning coaches. They have a very different view of the animal, more utilitarian, more show them who's boss, like kill it before it kills you. Like it's just a little bit of that, right?
Mm.
But I mean the motive behind that is safety for the human. So it's not a bad intention. So somebody I really respected actually sent me a message saying, "What are you doing? That is really dangerous." And I knew, like, and I knew, like, I mean, it was not dangerous at all. Like, there's horses I would never allow that with, right? I knew that pony, I knew the situation, I was right there. Like, it was such a beautiful moment. And it was a moment that transformed this woman's life. Yet my own insecurity, because someone I respected said, "What are you doing?" Because they would never do that,
Yeah.
because their horses in that world are not trained the way mine are, right? And instead of just shoving it off to, okay, that's somebody who doesn't actually know what I'm doing and
Yeah.
has no comprehension, it affected me
Yeah.
because I respected them. So I don't think we ever cure ourselves of this, um, but it's an ongoing journey. But the difference was the difference that makes the difference, as you like to say, is I was able to say, okay, I'm incredibly triggered right now, right? Incredibly triggered. Why? Where is it coming from? Who does this belong to? Where is it originating from? And get back to that story of, okay, it's originating from the fact that a few years ago, I wasn't very competent with horses. Like 10 years ago, I had to learn. And this is somebody who was there in my learning days, right? So those insecurities are there. But why? Oh, I'm going back to my dad. And my dad always telling me what I was doing wasn't wrong. Like I had to recognize those patterns, because what she saw and what happened were totally irrelevant, totally not connected. And instead of me passing it off, I went back to being that little girl when my dad made me feel stupid, right? And that allowed me to really, because I mean, it's an exercise I'll do with my clients on projection, like, okay, this doesn't belong to me. This belongs to my father.
Mm.
Um, but it's not a red pill, blue pill thing. We never actually get over the fear of what people think. We do a lot better at it. We can process things differently. There's things I don't care about anymore.
Mm.
And I'll think, okay, I've got this handled. But then something like that happens and it's like, oh yeah, no, it's still there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an ongoing journey. And I believe as coaches, we really need to be so aware of our triggers.
Definitely, I agree with that, and even more so. I mean, we've touched on the fact that everything's gone online for the major
Yeah.
part, and some of the good things about that, some of the negative things about that. One of the negative things, of course, is the fact that so many more people now have got exposure to you and are able to express their opinions.
Yes.
And if you've not got a very strong internal self-referencing
Yeah.
system set up within yourself, that can throw you right off kilter. It
Yeah.
really can. And as we move through life, depending on how many people we come into contact with, every single person will have a different opinion of us,
Yeah.
none of which we can control. And so I bang on about this all the time. The only opinion that is really important is the one you have of yourself,
Yes.
because that's the one you can never escape. So as long
Yeah.
as you can look in the mirror in the morning, like what's looking back and feel good about yourself, then you're doing pretty good in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the one thing, if you were to ask me what I work on the most with people, would be that.
Mm,
Because it, a business strategy is, I mean, to me, it's just so simple.
mm,
um, Sometimes you need to fire the person. Sometimes you need to set a boundary. Sometimes you need to invest in a certain marketing thing. Sometimes you need to, because I don't just work with coaches, right?
mm,
Sometimes you need to have some contracts that you need to negotiate. Very simple.
mm,
But all that stuff, the conversation, not so simple. The firing, not so simple. The negotiation, um, and there's a lot of what will other people think.
mm,
And so, one of my clients is I mean, I have clients that are very private that don't participate in the community events, but one of them does. But she's so particular, like she doesn't want to. I mean, she's had incredible results, and she keeps saying, I feel like I need to give you a testimonial. I really want to, but I just don't want people to know like how bad I was. Like she has so much shame about the fact that she needed help.
mm.
So I'm like, you know what? You'll give it to me when you're ready. I'm more interested in why you're so ashamed of the fact that you need help. Like
Yeah.
that's so it's not something that goes away. And I would say that's the other difference that makes a difference, when people can lose that fear of what other people think, when they can actually realize that people aren't really thinking about you.
It's weird. I mean, I've listened to you talk about that, and I can sense off you, but isn't it? It gives you a warm feeling about what you do, doesn't it? When
Yes.
you can help people overcome stuff like that, that's
Yeah.
limiting them, limiting their potential, and more than that, but limiting their enjoyment of their lives and their level
Yes.
of happiness. If you
Yeah.
can, what a gift that is to give somebody.
I know. Well, they give it to themselves. I just facilitate, right? They
Yeah,
have to be open and willing, but
of course.
but I got to tell you, like, I'm unemployable. I could never go back to a job because this is so much more fulfilling to
Yeah,
see that transformation
yeah.
in people. I love it. Like,
Now I
it's
see.
why I get up. It's why I do what I do. Yeah.
I can tell because I mean I've just had a quick look at the clock, and I mean these are supposed to be half-hour calls, and I've
Oh my.
enjoyed our chat so much. The energy's been so good, and we're bouncing off each other really well, and the time's kind of like flying by because I'm enjoying it so much. But I want to be conscious of your time as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and our listeners too, right?
Yeah. And all I wanted to do, if we can kind of wrap it up.
Hmm.
Um, I'd like to quickly ask you what you're doing right now, what your projects are,
Sure.
and if there's you could share some ways if anybody wants to find out more about you, what you're doing, and get connected, how they can do that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, so right now, I mean, my primary focus right now are the equine alchemy retreats. I do private client 1, 2, 3 day retreats. That's what I'm working on, because I mean, I do have clients in my year-long programs, but this has been something that we're adding, and we love it. And so for me personally, my goals are to buy another property next door, but which probably won't happen for a few years because they're not even selling it, but they don't know that. But I've set the intention, um, and that's kind of where that's our big thing right now, and we're loving it, and it's incredible work. So that's kind of my next step, to bring this forward. On a personal level, I want to get another horse, but my husband doesn't know that yet. I have 4. So
I'll keep the secret. Don't worry, I won't tell him.
thank you. Well, you're in the UK, he won't hear me. Um, and yeah, and if people want to find me, there's obviously my YouTube channel. It's just Nafissa Shireen. It's a lot more practical and tactical than we've been today, but YouTube likes that kind of stuff, right? So, but underneath that is all the learning, like the mindset. And then my website is nafissashireen.com, and you can find me there. And we have tons and tons of resources and downloads to help people with whatever thing from soup to nuts. And it's all free. So they can go to my blog and they can find all different kinds of things.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. And I've got to tell you once again, I've thoroughly enjoyed today. Really
I did
enjoyed it
too.
so much that we've got to do it again. I'd love to hook up again, maybe
Sure.
6 months, something like that. Have a little check-in with each other. Another cup of
Absolutely.
coffee. There we go.
Yes.
I have mine lined up, and just see where everything's sitting down. It'd be great to check in again with you if that's good.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed our chat today. It was a lot of
It's
fun.
been an absolute pleasure. Take very good care, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, Nafissa. Bye. Hey, it's Robert here. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you've really enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed this, then please subscribe to this channel and come back and see many more. Doing these things all the time. And if you want to know when the next one comes up, click the little bell and you'll get a notification each and every time we've got a new video up there for you to have a look at. And the other thing is, I nearly forgot. If you love everything to do with personal development, business development, and just getting yourself into a peak state, then you're going to want to get over to my free webinar training, which is going to show you exactly the steps to take to overcome any inner barriers that are stopping you from achieving in life and business right now, and exactly what to do to get that put right and start living the life of your dreams, starting right now. Sounds like a tall order? Promise you, you can do this stuff. Get across to my webinar training. The link is in the description below this video. I hope to see you there. And at the very least, I hope that you click the bell. I hope you subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you back here again soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.